most people don't really want sound money even now, which is very worrying because when I got into Bitcoin, I was hoping for more, I said, a bottom up revolution. And now I understood
Mhm.
most people, they don't care. It also was so frustrating
Yeah.
to start off with because I really, they don't. I
Yep.
was telling everybody about Bitcoin and
So
people
true.
thought I'm crazy. I even know
Yep.
people that kind of a few years ago, they stopped responding to messages because they thought that I've lost my mind because I went so
Yep.
deep into this rabbit hole, and I just wanted to help. But maybe they'll circle back, or they won't. But it just made me realize it's not worth putting your energy into other people if they don't appreciate it. So it's more important to focus on ourselves. And I think there are a lot of individuals that do that, and they'll help make this Bitcoin revolution come true. And they are reaching out, obviously, to other peoples, and also conversations like this, content and education is very important. And one thing that worries me a little bit is if there are certain individuals that hold a lot of Bitcoin, they also have a certain influence on people's opinion, potentially also on the consensus. So going forward, I hope and Bitcoin managed actually to remain tamper-proof and independent and centralized. But that is a little worry if there are certain companies, certain institutions, individuals that have a certain agenda, they could push it and influence other people that run nodes. So it's very important that we still run nodes because as this Bitcoin journey progressive, the conversations also get more complex. First, it was what is the problem? Why do we need a solution? Why is Bitcoin a good solution? What is Bitcoin? And now the question is, how do we apply Bitcoin? So we, for example, in this podcast, we talked about how do we apply Bitcoin to the real estate world. But sometimes I think it's important to go back to the basics, and one of the basics is if you can run a node. It took me a while to get accustomed to running a node because I come from finance. I'm not a developer, but
Same.
I
Yep.
learned over time and now I do. And I try to run
Yep.
multiple nodes in different geographical locations. And something I would like to suggest of you, also if you're a company that gets into Bitcoin because you want to use it as a treasury asset, maybe try to engage with the ethos of the asset as well. You can run a node, help the system to stay sovereign and decentralized.
I love that you said that.
And
I
yeah,
just no, go ahead.
no, that's it. And other than that, maybe it's a bit esoteric, but over time, I just learned to just kind of trust my intuition. My intuition tells me there's always risk, there's always a black swan event, there can always be a catastrophic failure or systematic issues. But something inside of me tells me we're on the right track. And rather than worrying what could happen, I think we should really embrace what we can, the change we can make, and like focus on that.
Yeah, that is so beautifully said. And I so one thing, like you went back to orange pilling people and talking to people, and there were so many people that unfortunately don't have the eyes to see or ears to hear. They just shut down. They don't want to. They want to bury their head in the sand, and that for some reason just doesn't compute. I think with the modern Bitcoiner, and we don't get it. We're just we're all built differently. Obviously, I'll never understand that why you don't want to learn and keep growing. And but like you said, it's the intuition. Like God gave us five senses, but he also gave us six higher faculties: intuition, willpower, reason, imagination, memory. That sets us apart from animals. And like you said, use having your gut, your
Mm.
intuition. We've had that like phased out of us over the last 100 years, 110 years since at least probably the central bank here in America and the central banks around the world, really for hundreds of years. So it's this Keynesian, Marxist, inflationary currency that they just keep peddling for a reason, right? To how they keep power. So, man, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down a different time, right there, Leon. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned BlackRock, or sorry, you mentioned other big entities having power. I was thinking of BlackRock actually before you even said this. I wanted to ask you one kind of final thing before you get your final thoughts, but running a node just so like the easy things to do are easy not to do, and it's such a great thing. I was going to say Justin Nazaroff with Phoenix Ammunition. I just interviewed him recently, and he teaches he got nodes for all of his employees a few years ago. You can pay in Bitcoin to get his ammo from him. And just really living the ethos. So I think that's such a huge thing because, like you said, whether it's BlackRock coming in, because BlackRock is a huge real estate owner of real estate here in America. I'm not sure how much they do where you're at, if it's just here in America that they're doing real estate and picking up housing, but they own a ton of housing here. And that's why it is so important to run nodes and because you're battling these huge entities, whether we know it or not, or whether we like it or not. So I think that cannot go unstated, and it's the simple things to do are simple not to do. And that's why it's so important. So it's a great reminder.
Hmm. Yeah, no, totally. I agree. I mean, BlackRock. I mean, Whitney Webb has gone deep into the negative side effects of large institutions entering the Bitcoin space. And I think if you want to learn about that, you can read into that, and then you can decide basically how much of it you can really foresee, because you have to decide for yourself, I think. What future do you imagine? Is it more of a dystopian future, more of a utopian future? Because certain things we can't influence, but we can influence our own thinking. And I think what we think becomes reality in a way. I'm talking about our own reality. I'm not talking about the state of the world, because we can't change the state of the world. We can change our own existence and influence the world around us. And obviously, maybe there are frequencies where we also interconnected globally, consciously or physically. But I think that yes, BlackRock has the ability to obtain large amounts of Bitcoin very fast, and they can capture that value as well. And like I said, there are institutions potentially in the future that could exercise control by issuing a certain opinion, which could influence other people. So it's important that we are staying resistant to any institution. And if we think about the block wars, it was actually also plebs and node runners against large institutions. These institutions were formed from Bitcoin. They weren't fiat institutions, but they were the first big businesses and in Bitcoin, and they wanted to increase the block size. So now we have large fiat institutions, and potentially they also have a certain mindset. They are projecting on Bitcoin consciously and also subconsciously, and we'll just maintain the network. We
Yeah.
run our node and go our way.
No, that's it, Leon. Because I think people get, again, we have this common theme of like living in two worlds. People conflate these things, and the network itself, running a node is so incredibly important. We do this, we protect a network, and influential part is kind of what Saylor alluded to, what you just alluded to, where we've already seen, mass psychosis, right? In many ways, that's a whole nother subject we can go down on a different day. And Whitney, like you said, Whitney Webb has talked about this ad nauseum. The mass formation, mass psychosis, people being influenced in ways consciously or subconsciously is so important, because just because the network's running and hey, it's stable and logistically it's good and the technology is good, if all the humans are like, you know what, we changed our mind, excuse me, we changed our mind and we think that doing things, backwards is now the right idea again, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, so that to me is so incredibly important. It doesn't get talked near enough. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's this being persuaded by these outside forces or forces that might not have your best intention. That's the differentiator versus, oh, hey, the network's running or, running correctly or running the way we want to, big blocks, small blocks. It's the influence. It's the human it's the human part, it's a human system at the end of the day, truly. So,
Yeah,
man,
Bitcoin, if
so
it's a human system at the end of the day,
yes,
because the system is being run by humans. So we kind of have to
yes.
pay attention to our mental health, our physical health, not to be corrupted
So
and
well
stay
said.
on path.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.